Okay, I'm Nuala Geary, Head of Employment and Training at Peabody, and I won't assume, or I should assume that you all know who Peabody are. We've been knocking around a bit. We are a well-established 1800s RSL. Sometimes it feels like I've worked there that long. And we generally have around about 20,000 properties, so we're a pan-London, not a national housing association. We've recently gone through quite a, for us, a very important and critical rebranding and refocusing of who and what we are. And this is our new mission statement. And I think it sits probably very similarly with other RSLs across the country that, again, we've seen all the correlation that we've known for quite some time that actually it's not just the bricks and mortar and the provision of quality homes, but it's also about the quality of life and all the other support mechanisms that clearly, in my role as employment training, we're trying to oversee as far as the worklessness agenda and all related services. But of course, not forgetting, again, similar to other landlords, we have many directorates across our organisation, which is around the neighbourhood services that focuses very much, in a nutshell, on our estate management, all the related services which go on and on and on. And again, many of you will know those, so I won't patronise you. And clearly all the customer services related aspects of the business. The directorate that I sit in is our community services, and this was formed in the late 90s. So we were one of the first RSLs to really start to address this, and certainly I'm very proud to be associated with the track record. By no means perfect, by no means brilliant, but I think we have learned an awful lot along the way, and I hope we continue to build on the good practice. But just to indicate, within that directorate, we have various departments. Employment training is obviously the area that I'm responsible for, but it's also about how we can link more effectively with our supported housing services, the youth service, and we've also got our own community development arm. So that's the shape, which is a couple of hundred of people, and again, it's just London-wide. But the key thing is it's about how you align those services as far as the employability agenda is concerned, and of course we all know how critical both politically and realistically the whole poverty agenda is. So it's the work that we do and how it's aligned to those agendas. So that's Peabody, and we do this not just on our own. Certainly, just to emphasise, the work that I'm involved in the directorate is reliant on external funding. So there's a small amount of core funding. I think the investment portfolio that traditionally we've been used to dipping into doesn't quite exist now, so that's impacted quite critically on us. So we are very reliant on the drawing down of external funding. And all the usual acronyms, the LDAs, the LSCs, the ESFs, type money that we are working with. The other critical relationship to us is the course of local authorities. So I'm also delighted not just to be doing this project in partnership with Home Connections and be associated with it, and hopefully continue to be, but also partnerships with boroughs such as Islington, where we have probably one of our biggest housing stock areas. And again, I'm pleased that we're involved in supporting the Trailblazer pilot. So clearly the local authority relationships are important. And we've all seen with the recent shift in the political landscape with the Tenants Service Authority and the Homes and Communities Agency, how important that relationship is going to be, and also the role that local authorities are now increasingly going to play in housing. So as far as Peabody and the HEX pilots, as I think it's already been indicated, the pilot finishes in February, but I just thought I'd give you an indication of some of the stats that we've been able to collect at this stage. So it's a bit of a toe dip, but it literally is from when we went live on the 2nd of December to the 8th of January. So we have had, or did have at that moment in time, and Mitch is here and hopefully will back me up if there's any additional data that we might be able to astound people with. But as things stood at that moment in time, we had 148 bids. Interestingly, 17% or 25 of those who were involved in that engaged in the actual HEX process. And even more interestingly, although I gather not untypically, 62 completed the site survey. It's no surprise to us, some of the stats do have parallels with the work that we've been doing across all our employment programmes. So 41% are aged 36 to 49. And again, no surprise that half of the people engaged in this process are not in work. And we all know the stats around that, which we're all working hard to address. But 60% for me was the interesting one, because it's about the number of people that to date, for whatever reason, have not been accessing the employability related services that Peabody have been delivering for 10 years, even though they may have a learning centre, have learning centres across London that are generally on Peabody estates where we deliver our employment programmes. So we've got qualified employment advisors, we've got qualified skills tutors, we run an awful lot of our programmes in partnership with organisations such as Remploy, Reading Partnership, Work Directions, Prospects, Connections, the usual menu of organisations expect us to be relating with, as well as also working with employers. And it could be that Mary in Block A, who's lived there all her life and is probably the third generation of living in that block, didn't know that building poked in the corner there was where we did all this fantastic stuff. So for me, one of the critical things has been how can we use this project as a way now of engaging with those residents that for whatever reason have not been engaging with us in order to get this support, because 3/4 of them are telling us that they want that support. 40% are also quite, again we've touched on this with other speakers, there's no surprise that there is a need or some sort of urgency around wanting some more in work, because of course we all know that there's lots of mantras out there, well you've got to be earning 35,000, you won't get enough of benefits, and people are very scared and fearful, and a lot of that is ignorance and lack of real understanding. And as Nimesh has highlighted, one of the simple tools is the calculator in terms of benefits, better